Oh, don't worry guys, I like Mario Kart DS. Actually wait, do I really like this game? Hey everyone, I'm Albert Boris. So, as you might have guessed from the title of this video, I am not the biggest fan of Mario Kart DS. Which may come as a surprise, as from what I've seen, this seems to be one of the most popular Mario Kart games of all time. In fact, a lot of people even rank it first. And I mean, I wouldn't say any of that love is unwarranted, as Mario Kart DS was a bit of a revolutionary game for the time. Trend-setting retro courses, the last good balloon battle in the series, and an exclusive mission mode. Mario Kart DS definitely has a lot of unique traits that the other ones don't. It's got a lot of content, not just for a Mario Kart game, but especially for a handheld one at that. All of this is enough to make this one of the best Mario Kart games. Or is it? Dare I say, in my opinion, these features have made the game the most overrated entry in the series. Because while they were cool for the time, they may not have aged well, in addition to it overshadowing a lot of other problems with the game.
No, that's just a bad opinion! In no way Mario Kart DS is an overrated or bad game! Think of all it has!
Okay, so, that title used to be held by Mario Kart 64 for me, but nowadays, most people don't really care about that game anymore, as the new generation has always favored this game, from what I've seen. The problem with Mario Kart DS isn't the lack of content, because as far as that goes, Mario Kart DS probably has the most content out of any Mario Kart game. It's more or less what the content itself is. We're gonna start off with mild annoyances with the game and then proceed naturally with the actually bad things. Remember, this is my opinion, so even if you don't agree with me, which I don't think you will, you can relax at the fact that my opinion isn't the law. Yet. Anyways, immediately when you first play the game, you may feel that the game feels slightly broken in terms of the gameplay. There are no regulations on how often a spinny shell may come up, for example. Mario Kart 7 tends to get a lot of flack because of how often these things come up, and it's pretty frustrating, but you can usually expect 1 or 2 per race. With Mario Kart DS, there are no regulations. Sometimes none will ever come. Other times there will literally be 4 to 5 in a single race. Equally unpredictable are the red shells. Not in terms of how often they target you, but rather because of how often they hit you. Usually you may have a banana or a green shell to protect yourself in the case of an incoming red shell, but in Mario Kart DS you just kind of have to hope for the best. Sometimes the shield does its job, while other times it sneaks from the side, even though you had an item. Yeah, it adds an element of surprise, but when I'm in a tight game trying to get 3 stars in every cup, that kind of achievement can be impossible because of this one glitch, since the game is very picky about what is allowed for 3 stars. While we're at it, I should say that Mario Kart DS on the whole feels very unfinished and glitchy, and this is an argument you'll see me using a lot in this review. A lot of the small things which should be fixed simply aren't.
Dude, those are just nitpicks. Nothing to hate a game over.
Did you even listen to what I said about opening up the review with minor issues and then going on to the real problems? And then you have snaking. Now, it's debatable whether it's a glitch or not. Some say it was advertised as power sliding, others say it's an exploit. What it does, however, is breaking the game. The drifting in Mario Kart DS is a bit different from the other entries. Just spam left and right on the D-pad on a corner to instantly get the orange sparks. It doesn't just work on corners though, you can go entire straight lines just snaking. It may seem like a cool way to dominate the map at first, until literally everyone does it online. A lot of people like snaking, but I just think it feels cheap. It's not particularly difficult to pull off assuming you have the right cart, and games just become a race of who can sneak the most. I'm of the slightly unpopular opinion that the time-based drifts of the later games were better. It felt a lot more rewarding when you got a good spark, as you needed to learn when was the best time to start drifting and how much in or out. And even the older games had better drifting, because while you didn't get any boosts, it was fun trying to do a perfect cut while turning. It was super difficult but super satisfying when it did happen. But snaking? You just flick left and right as fast as possible and instantly get your prize. It just feels kind of cheap to me. The gameplay is definitely not the most polished one in the series, and not in a Mario Kart Wii way where it's so broken it loops back to being fun, just enough broken to still make it ordinary. That's fine enough, nothing that downright ruins the game, just a mild annoyance. Unfortunately, the track selection to make up for that is also pretty
What did you just say?
Alright, so this is definitely where most people are gonna disagree with me, but outside of Super Mario Kart, this game probably has the worst selection of courses in the entire series for me. We'll start off with the Nitro tracks, which is definitely the better half, but only by a slim margin. I will give credit where credit is due. The really good levels are really good. Luigi's Mansion, Delfino Square, Shroom Ridge, DK Pass, Airship Fortress and Peach Gardens are some examples of courses that nail the atmosphere and setting for all the limitations the DS has. Unfortunately, the DS has limitations. Quite severe ones in fact for the kind of courses this game holds. For every DK pass, you also have a tick-tock clock, which seems like it could have been a great nod to Super Mario 64, but because of the DS's limits, it just feels so dead and quiet. You also have tracks like Figure 8 Circuit, which is literally the worst course in the entire series. You ever wanted a course with no features or niches at all? Well, here it is. But it's not just about the limitations. Some tracks also feel like they could have been great in spite of them, but ended up wasted potential for no reason. Waluigi Pinball as an example seems super cool at first. A pinball machine? I'm in. Unfortunately, the pinball area is only at the end. For the majority of the course, you're just driving on the pinball slide thing that could have been on literally any other track. And even the courses that should be good like Bowser's Castle or Rainbow Road are underwhelming, because they don't do much to stand out. I swear they basically copied the layouts and music from their GameCube counterparts, and due to the limitations of the DS, they don't win on it either. Yeah, sure, they got one distinct area each, but it doesn't make up for the entire course. Overall, the Nitro courses in Mario Kart DS typically suffer from limitations, wasted potential, repetitiveness, but most of them are still playable. For all it's worth, they did take a few risks, but I wish the newer games did sometimes. Unfortunately, less positive things can be said about the retro course selection. Like, holy shit. So Mario Kart DS popularized the idea of bringing back courses from older Mario Kart games and remaking them for a newer audience. A perfect idea, I agree. The problem is that Mario Kart DS was not the right game to start that trend. Once again, because of the DS's limitations, a lot of these courses, instead of feeling improved, have been downgraded. The SNES and GBA courses are at their core flat, and they did not translate well over to the DS. Now they feel like fabricated fields of pixels. The GameCube courses were definitely the most poorly translated though. It's expected that they would be downgraded since the GameCube was a lot more powerful. That's not so much the issue. It's the fact that they even went out their way to remove interesting aspects of the courses. They removed the bridge shortcut, warp pipe and pavement from Mushroom Bridge for seemingly no reason, as an example. And same with the tunnel in Yoshi's Circuit. Not enough of the DS had limits, they even took out the fun aspects of tracks. The only retro tracks that didn't really get butchered were the N64 ones. There's a reason why Frappy Snowland and Banshee Boardwalk are among the best courses in the game. Probably because they were less advanced than the GameCube ones, but also because they were 3D modeled in comparison to the SNES and GBA ones, so they felt relatively similar to their original counterparts. There's a reason why Frappy Snowland and Banshee Boardwalk are among the best courses in the game. Now, while the limitations of the DS did contribute to the retro tracks' downfall, it could have been excused if they had picked, like, you know, good retro tracks? I tried to see the good in Mario Kart tracks, but most of the courses they brought back were just awful. They picked the most safe and boring courses to fill out most of the spots, with only a few unique tracks. The Shell Cup might as well just be called the Circuit Cup, because 3 of the 4 courses aren't just circuits, but the first circuits in their respective games. How much more basic can you get? Is this really how you make a first impression on retro tracks? In fact, 5 of all the retro tracks are just circuits. And there was originally gonna be 6 before they scrapped GCN Mario Circuit. But even when you don't have a circuit, you've got something super safe like Donut Plain Swan, Moo Moo Farm, or Baby Park. This one in particular suffered from DS limitations, as it effectively got turned into the retro equivalent of Figure 8 Circuit. Honestly, it makes me wonder why they even bothered to have retro tracks in DS and not just wait until Wii, which was more advanced. Maybe they just wanted to sacrifice the bad courses so they could move on to actual interesting ones in the next game? Fair enough. But that time could have also instead been spent on making better nitro tracks or fixing the many glitches. Surprisingly enough, the battle mode suffered much less and is arguably my favorite part of this game. It was the last Mario Kart with a balloon battle where you had to eliminate your opponent instead of just scoring the most points, which made it a lot more tense. And unlike the games before it, you can now also play against computers, effectively making this debatably the best battle mode in the franchise, as previously it was multiplayer only. And Shiny Runners is a nice precursor to Coin Runners in Mario Kart Wii, with elements of balloon battle in the elimination aspect. The stage selection is interesting because it also has retro stages, but only 2 compared to the Nitro 4, and unlike with the courses, they literally picked the 2 best courses of all time, and they weren't ruined by limitations. Well, kind of at least. Block Fort arguably looks better than it did on the N64 in my opinion, as the textures look a little more realistic. My only question is, why didn't they use the correct stage themes for the retro stages? All 6 stages use the same theme, and while they work on the Nitro ones, they don't fit the retro ones in my opinion. Pipe Plaza is supposed to be mischievous, but it sounds post-apocalyptic with this song. With Black Fort it doesn't fit as badly, but it doesn't have the same toyish vibe. You may say all of this is because of time constraints, but like, the Black Fort theme is literally already in the game. I mean, it's not a massive issue, the stages are still fun, but knowing that the song is in the game and not used in its proper place just makes this game feel incredibly lazy. Actually, that's an understatement. How hard is it to make a stage play a different song that's already in the game? Just what? But of course, you can't discuss Mario Kart DS without mentioning the one, the only, the mission mode. I don't really care about it, honestly, sorry. I understand why people say it's the best aspect of the game, since everything else kinda sucks. Jokes aside, when people praise this game, they always point towards the mission mode and its absence in future games. Mario Kart is a franchise that is primarily made for the multiplayer audience. That's why it has such a heavy emphasis on online, and that's why the older games didn't have much single player content to do. So when Mario Kart DS came around, the developers actually thought, maybe we should actually focus on single player content. I mean, not everyone has a friend, and this console is a handheld. It might benefit us, and it sure did. Mario Kart DS was the first single player friendly game in the series. You could do versus racing online, battle mode with CPUs, and of course the single player missions. The premise of this mode is simple. Do a bunch of random missions in courses, whether it's collecting coins, driving through rings, or battling bosses. It's fun, and that's all there is to it. The mission mode is far from a problem, it's one of the most distinct aspects of the game. However, at the same time, it doesn't scream out to me. You play the missions and have some fun, then what? Okay, sure, there's a secret 7th level, but what else? Oh, you can aim for the 3-star ranking. But the bar for earning that is so ridiculously high that it ultimately isn't worth it, especially since you don't even get a reward for it. This is a problem the Grand Prix Cups have as well. You need to play near perfectly to get that shiny rank, as one mistake will ruin your race. But back to the missions. At its core, mission mode is a side mode that serves as nothing more than a simple distraction alongside battle mode, but unlike battle mode, there's also no incentive to going back once you've beaten it, since most of the missions themselves are just there. The only missions I can remember off the top of my head after playing is the one where you have to drive backwards on that kebab wheel, the one where you drove backwards on DK Pass, and the bosses, which are admittedly cool. The rest are just the same old drive through rings or race against this character. Personally, I don't think it would have made much of a difference if it didn't exist. It's not something I really go back to since the missions are all samey and the grind isn't worth it. It is a simple distraction.
You're just spoiled. Be happy there is at least a mission mode.
With all that being said, however, Mario Kart Wii definitely improved on the mission mode.
But Albert, didn't you say Mario Kart DS was the only game with this feature?
Yeah, that's not entirely true actually. Mario Kart Wii actually had its own version of mission mode called Tournaments, but it played a bit differently in that there was a monthly challenge for you to do, and your score could then be compared with other people online. Somewhat similar to Mario Kart Tour actually. And honestly, it was better while it lasted. There was a much higher incentive to come back as there was always a new mission every month, and while you were playing, you were actually competing with real people. instead of the game. The missions in Mario Kart DS in comparison are just kind of You play them once and never come back unless you're a masochist. I am never getting these 3-star ranks. Alright, so how should I conclude this review? I know. Mario Kart DS is a game that in some ways is a bit revolutionary, but whatever it did introduce was limited by the time and console. And even within those limitations, some aspects were a bit unregulated to the point of the entire experience feeling somewhat unfinished, making it the most overrated Mario Kart of our time. Overall, 5.5 out of 10. Mediocre. So we'll put you there until I have another game to review.
Dude, you said on the thumbnail this game was bad, and now you're just saying it's mediocre? You slimy clickbaiter.
And that, my dear friends, was my critique of Mario Kart DS. But what do you think of Mario Kart DS? Do you also hate it? Or do you love it? Please like and share if you enjoyed this video and subscribe to my channel for more reviews, predictions and rankings of Mario games. With that being said, I'm signing off.